Right, everyone, welcome to the Estimating for Profit webinar. I'm Kurt Heggetschweiler. I'm going to be handing over to Jim Lackas in a sec, one of the best estimators in the country. And guys, I don't have to tell you 90% right, of your inefficiencies being wasted time and money, can be traced back to your pre-construction phase, right? Your sales, your marketing, and there's no more important area than getting the numbers right when you're pricing up your jobs and you're estimating. So again, we're going to hear from one of the best in the country. And before I hand over to Jim, if you guys have any burning questions, please type them in the chat box. There's a questions or chat box. Please type them in there. Ideally, wait till the end, type them in, and then Jim and I will go through them at the end. But if you need to ask something now because you have to get off the call, please do so. Okay, so whatever works for you. And with that said, over to you, Jim.
Thanks, Kurt. Hello, everybody. Estimating in practice, a life cycle of an estimate. The idea of this is to put some logic behind how an estimate gets priced and you see the client sees it, but then also how if you win the job and it goes into your project management software and then your accounting software, etc., how it all meshes together. It's sort of the general sort of direction we're sort of going for within this talk. So estimating is a very, very, very long-winded, very open-ended. There's a lot of tentacles within it, so we try and sort of keep it on track. But yeah, if there are questions, by all means ask, and we'll try and make an otherwise boring thing interesting. So about me, a lot of you guys do know me, but just quickly, I started as a carpenter, studied construction management, studied civil engineering, and I'm a registered structural and civil engineer. I've always done a bit of estimating on the side. It's saved me from hunger a few times. I met Kurt in 2017, and we got talking, and next thing I know, I'm the estimator. I do enjoy it. There's absolutely no doubt. I really do enjoy it, and I wouldn't change my current life for anything. It's great. It gave me the option to work from home and to watch my young boy growing up, and it's been great. I do, however, always have developments going on in the background. I'm still passionate about building and keep a foot in the door, which always gives me an insight to what you guys out on site are dealing with, and me for that matter are dealing with. I think it's important. I'm not just sitting there with a tie on in an office saying, yeah, you should be doing something. I do actually have skin in the game, so to speak. So agenda, the general idea of what we're talking about, and I do very much push the point. Feel free to jump in and ask questions wherever you need to. So the importance of estimating, a quick estimating cheat sheets, the types of estimating, the preliminary agreements as well, types of estimating. Once a job is awarded, and that's a fairly big part of what we're going to be talking about today, trade categories and cost codes, risk management, we'll briefly go over risk management, variation management, a few final thoughts, and then just a Q&A. So let's get into it. The importance of estimating. So important, yet so much fear. And this is the part that I see everyone with it. Everyone gets scared. Obviously, they're dealing with sort of large chunks of money, and you know, you want to make sure you get numbers right. So estimating is the most important part of your business. And no matter what other part of the business, everyone says, yeah, it's important. You've got to have marketing, and you've got to have this, and you've got to have that. I actually agree with that, because without that, your work won't come in. But if you can't actually price the stuff correctly in the first place, then really you might as well go and live on a beach in Barbados. Building houses is your product. That's your product of sale. If you can't get the pricing of that product accurate, then really it's you're behind, you know, it's never really going to work for you. Other reasons it gets so scary is it takes up probably more time than anything else. If you're estimating consistently, it can be one of the biggest time suckers of your entire business. All I can offer to that is allocate time when you can to turn your phone off, preferably during the day. As I say there, it's normally after hours when you're tired. It's the worst time to estimate, even for me, for anybody. It's when you're tired and you're not thinking straight. You might as well turn off, go and spend some time with your family, get a good night's sleep, get up early and do it the next morning. So just quickly, you're doing your estimating versus outsourcing. This is one that we sort of get. People say, why should I trust you as an estimator? And there's actually valid questions. So it's your time versus the stress of getting it done right. So I suppose a quick question for you, are you a confident estimator? And do you trust an external estimator? And what are your fears of having your estimates done by others? And when I say by others, by me, by employees, you might have internal staff, anything like that. it's just a few thoughts for you. So an estimating cheat sheet, a few words of wisdom. I sort of claim to be, well, apparently Kurt says I'm the best in Australia. I think I'm pretty good, but I don't know about that, but we'll see. Estimating, the practice of patience and an eye for detail, it's how I describe it. Take your time. It will take a while, but there's no quick fix. There's a million different software suites out there that will say to you, oh, you can estimate in this time and that time and all the rest of it. At the end of the day, you're still going to be measuring in some way, shape or form and applying prices to it. It takes time. There's no way around it. It's important. You need to be able to go over it because it also will tell you a lot about what's going to happen with your job before you even start doing it. Another one, keep your database current. Suppliers, subcontractors, etc. Always keep a current database. Update as regularly as you can. Pricing is dynamic, and that has been so important over the past 3 years. We saw timber prices literally jumping sometimes 10% in the space of a month there a few years back. It come back a little bit, but some crazy amounts of inflation were going on at that point in time. If you are maintaining your own database, if maintaining your own database is impractical, use an external database provider like Cordell's or Rawlinson's. They're quite good. They are quite good. They're always good to have for us, just for an offset price every now and again. Don't be afraid to modify the prices you see appropriate. We have our own database. We will modify things as we see fit depending on the magnitude of the job. They give you averages. It's the same thing with them. You really do want to jiggle things around just to suit. If you're a client of ours, we happily share our rates, even if you're working on a job that we're not involved in. We're more than happy. Just ask us. This is an important one. Estimate with the intention to be scrutinized. What I mean by that is always use measurements and labor and material rates. Never just put a number in. I see it all the time. 10 grand for a front fence repairs, as I've noted there. But I mean, it can be even, I couldn't be bothered, working something out, so I'm just going to allow $10,000 for landscaping or something. As I say there, don't do it. It will come back to bite you. The reason it'll come back and bite you is at some point, and when we get into how we budget and how we actually measure the numbers once we start building, trying to divide up that $10,000 into what exactly was going on is a very, very difficult thing to do. It's better to have the numbers in there and a realistic idea of what you think it's going to cost rather than just a lump sum figure and hoping for the best. Preliminary agreements. I'd say everyone who works with Kurt will be using preliminary agreements. Your time is valuable. You should charge for it. An average builder's quote for a $1 million project will take approximately 10 days for the builder. How do I know this? From heaps of people telling me. I just sort of know the rough figures of how long guys say they should be taking to do things or how long they take to do things. Should you be paid for it? Yeah, absolutely. Totally should be. And you should be charging for it and should be charging appropriately for it. Does your preliminary agreement include, and sometimes it's not just the price, help with finishes selections, help with consultant coordination. More and more I'm seeing builders helping with DAs and CDCs and submissions, and you should be paid for it. As I say there, I do have a lot of selection sheet templates and other templates throughout. Feel free to give me a call or email me. I'm more than happy to share all this stuff with you. Types of estimates. Not all estimates are created equally. Preliminary costing, high-level budget, detail estimate, and full tender submission. There are a few in between that, but these are the most common ones that we see. Remember, whatever dollar number you send to your client, they will hold you to it. And that's a really important thing. You've got to be very, very, very measured and calculated with what you send them. How often have you seen a preliminary agreement, a preliminary price, a preliminary costing, I should say, go out for a certain amount of money with no documentation, and then next thing you know, the client gets the full estimate done and it's considerably more, and they will say, oh yeah, but you said it's going to cost so much. And you try and explain to them it's because there was lack of documentation, etc. But sometimes that's easier said than done. So preliminary costing, accuracy, 25 to 75%, depending on the level of detail and how lucky you were with the square meter rate. And that's an important one. Sometimes you might bang it straight on. You might actually just pluck a square meter rate that just happens to be what the final number is when you eventually get around to doing your detailed estimate. GFO, or gross floor area, measured by a square meter rate. 200 square meters at $5,000 a square meter, multiply by one by the other, and you get your final total. For a client or architect, direction during a design process, it's about all they're good for. You can't build off them, you can't do anything. They're just literally just as a bit of information. Often pre-development consent, there's no DA involved at that point in time. As I said before, these can lead to tears. Remember, the client will remember this number. An option for this is ProCloud. It's very good. I still think a whole estimate is better, but ProCAD is definitely a good option. Not fit for budget tracking during construction, and we'll touch more on that a bit later. Number 2, high level budget. Accuracy is 50 to 75% depending on the level of detail. A measure of the architectural plan, sometimes with consultant drawings, you see them with hand sketches and, a few little sort of hand notes here and there, and maybe just a couple of sort of beam sizes and that sort of thing, concrete slab thicknesses, etc. However, accuracy is limited due to the lack of detail. Often a DA approval, however, not always. More often than not, you do have a DA approval at this point. High level budgets are definitely a better alternative to preliminary costing. There are actual quantities to justify the cost, and that's the part that I like about it. There's always physical quantities of square meters and cubic meters for concretes and slab surfaces and wall areas, etc., that you can go back to. There is some intelligence behind it. And these are also not fit for budget tracking during construction. I see guys try it and it sort of normally kind of ends up in tears because you've got stuff everywhere and it's just really difficult to bring all the ideas back into, a pointy end of a construction management software suite. Types of estimate, a detailed estimate. This is probably about 80% of our work. A measure on more completed documentation, the architectural drawings, proper issued structural and hydraulic details, sometimes issued for DA, not necessarily for construction, but still there, basic certificates, etc. But documentation is still limited. Sometimes all the documentation is there, but there's been no design coordination between engineers and architects. So the architecturals will say one thing, the engineer has allowed for a beam that might impair some head height or something like that, or you see it all the time. Often generic specification of works, generic as in normally has a dirty big thing that says drafts through the middle of it, and they're just taking the address off the last job they did, but it's something to work off. Offer basic finisher schedule notice on the plan, sometimes a one-page interior exterior schedule, sometimes you see them on the facing page. It might give you roof types, wall types, a few things like that. Most likely a DA. By the time you get to this point, chances are you have a DA or a CDC approval or something. Most likely a homeowner ready to start construction, although uneducated as to what is needed for an accurate quote. They will throw everything at you and go, oh yeah, but we can do this. But, this is where your preliminary agreement comes in. Generally, you have to work with them a little bit further. I thought twice about putting this in, but something we do come across quite a bit. These level of details can sometimes end up as cost plus, or what I personally prefer as prefer over cost plus a negotiated tender. The lack of documentation is often a ploy by the owner or architect because they know they're going to change their mind, or they know that they still need work to do. And as a result, they've just let it out with the intention they know sort of what it's going to cost, and they just want to get a builder in they might like and just work with them. Can be a good thing, can be end up in tears, but it can be a good thing. Anyone who works with me knows that I prefer fixed price, but there is always a place for negotiated tender and cost plus, often on very complex works, heritage works, stuff like that. Sometimes in things that are just very, very difficult to price, or the preliminary, provisional sums, I should say, are going to far outweigh what the cost is likely to be. You can track these costs, but there will be holes in it, especially if it's due in charge. Okay, and the big daddy of them all, this is the absolute full tender submission where we see literally sometimes a pile as thick as a telephone book, thick of documentation. A full measure backed up with subcontractor and supplier pricing. It's very low risk because you've had everything verified. Full consultant details, hydraulic, civil, mechanical, electrical, etc. A full detailed specification of works. Full fixtures and finisher schedules, everything, exterior schedules, interior, sanitary ware. If you're lucky, they might even throw some prices on it. Tapware, lighting, tiles, floor coverings. If you think of it, it's been specified. This is the perfect level of detail for tracking costs because you can have, for example, subcontractor quotes that you can apply a purchase order to that then can go through the whole process and be tracked very, very accurately throughout the whole life cycle of the project. So once the job is awarded, transitioning an estimate from a quote to the project management software. All estimating packages have the ability to import and export, usually in Excel format. Usually, sometimes CSV, but usually Excel. All, and the vast majority of project management suites have the ability to import and export in Excel format. This is how they communicate with each other, unless, and there's two normal ideas with that, software utilities, software suites such as Build Exact will have the estimating and the and the project management all in one. The other alternative is a technical term called an API. It gives the software can link itself with another piece of software. We'll get into more of this later, but the most important thing to remember with your estimating to when you start the job is trade category codes or your cost codes must be consistent. There's no point in estimating with one set of cost codes and then turning around and trying to track your cost to another set of cost codes. It just doesn't work. Trade category codes, cost codes, keep them consistent. The only way to keep consistently between estimating, job management, and accounting is similar cost codes, and that is absolutely imperative. You speak to Don Doolan or Pat Williamson, both of them will stress this point as much as I will. We all need to have the same codes. Whoever estimates the job, manages the job, and then accounts the job or accounts the business will always need the same cost codes. Categories are usually no more than 5 levels deep. For example, I just plucked out concrete. Your heading would be concrete, your subheading would be footings, the type of footing would be a strip footing, and then the rate under the strip footing would be a strip footing, 25 MPa, normal concrete, etc. When estimating, that's the level of detail that we would always do. In fact, we might even go a little bit deeper and actually pull it into zones and tell you whereabouts the footings would be, or strip footing 1, SF1, or whatever it might be. When tracking the cost in the project management software, it's preferable to do it to this level, but as I was speaking to Don, it's not as imperative. If you want to keep a track of where you go right and go wrong on a job, it is imperative. You can get that level of granularity and actually keep an eye on where it's all going. It's important. When tracking in your accounting software, it's more likely that all you'd be doing is dealing with the heading, in this case, concrete, and you go no deeper. You don't want your accounting software to have footings, strip footings, anything lower than that. There's absolutely no point. All your accountant's interested in, all the ATO is interested in generally is not even necessarily the trade category. It's where it was. Was it a material, or was it a labor? Was it an above the line cost or below the line cost? It's just not necessary for the accounting software to go that deep. As I say there, it's not worth the confusion and you gain nothing from it. Even when you're estimating, the very least, use the heading as a minimum. You can't go wrong. Use something, better than nothing. Don't reinvent the wheel. I see the most weird and wonderful cost codes all over the place, and people try and mash, different cost codes from different libraries all together. We use the standard Australian Institute of Quantity Surveyors, AIQWare, standard method of measurement codes. We don't reinvent the wheel. It's tried and true. It's been around for a long time. And the reason we specifically do it is we give a very clear set of cost codes that also, one step further than that, if you stop using us and employ an estimator, they will be able to hit the ground running and know what they're doing straight away. It's very, very important. We think that it's very important to use something that's already around. Don't try and reinvent it. Risk management. We'll touch on risk management briefly. Does the risk match the reward? Managing trades internally versus external quotes. External quotes, you've got a physical number and that's it. Internally, chances are if you keep a track on them, you will do it for cheaper. However, you then run the risk of the blowouts of materials, blowouts of labor, blowouts of everything else. So where one will be internally could potentially be cheaper, the external quote might be more expensive, the risk is high versus risk is low. It's the question that the builder themselves has to decide which way they go with that. Should you get external pricing, rely on an hourly rate for subcontractors? Obviously, hint, get a fixed price, but you've got no idea how often. I still see it now, the guy's doing $50,000 worth of plumbing on a job and it's on hourly rate. And I just think it's crazy. I just don't understand why guys would do it. If you offer a bill of quantities, a BOQ, to your subcontractor, the chances of getting a quote from that subcontractor increases exponentially, and that's absolutely true. We often do this. We will price a job, the builder will take the prices out, leave the quantities in, send it across to a subcontractor and get a price. You would get 2 or 3 or 4 prices for the one trade, I should say, by 3 or 4 subcontractors quickly and easily. Everyone's apples for apples, and you can compare. There's nothing worse than getting 2 or 3 quotes back for something and having to try and sift through and work out what they've included and what they haven't included. If you start with a BOQ, everyone's on the same page. It's good to have a crew of regulars, there's absolutely no doubt. It's good to have loyalty amongst you guys, but are they being honest? Have they become too comfortable? And I suppose it's a question for you guys is, has anyone had a subby taking the piss? And I think the short answer is yes, it happens. You've got to keep them honest. And the easiest way to keep them honest is to have a couple of trades quote every package rather than just rely on the same guys all the time. Unless you have a good relationship, there's always exceptions. Variation management. Keep it clean and keep it honest. I see guys get themselves into all sorts of problems with variations, and the best piece of advice I can give, variations can go both ways. Always add and subtract from the same rates. And this is one for subcontractors too. Often guys don't want to give back as much for a reduction if they have to reduce something off a quote. And they will always, as soon as it goes more, they'll try and gouge someone. I don't agree with it. It's not ethical, and I just don't think it's right. Don't expect to give back less than you charge for more. It's just not right. Charge a handling fee. No matter if the variation is accepted or rejected, it takes time and you should charge for it. $600 a pop, nice round figure. Because also what it does is if the client who is just changing their mind every 5 minutes realizes that they've got to pay for it, they might think twice and actually make up their mind about what they want rather than getting you to requote something 3 or 4 times. We've all been there and done that. So the final thoughts, key takeaways. Talk your time, get the number right. Take your time and get the number right. I'm sorry, I was estimating a job this morning in a hurry and I had to quickly throw these last couple of slides in. It turns out that I didn't quite proofread them correctly. Take your time and get the number right. If it takes an extra week, go back to the principal, be it the client or the architect, or whoever's managing the tender, ask for an extension. It's better to get the number right and take a little bit longer, or heaven forbid, even say no to it, rather than try and rush something in, say yes, get it done, sign it, and then realize you made a mistake. Estimate with the intention to be scrutinized. It's probably the most important thing. Whatever you do, you are going to have to justify your cost in some way, shape, or form. Be it me, you, someone, the architect back to the client, someone is going to be asking you and you're going to have to scrutinize it. And this is again where having those 10 grand for something and they say, yeah, but where does that 10 grand chunk of money belong to? It's better to do it once and do it right. Charge a handling fee. No matter if the variation is accepted or rejected, it takes your time, should charge for it. They're the main ones that I would say about the estimating. And then we're done with the first part. Question time. There's no such thing as silly questions. I'm interested to hear thoughts. Feel free to email me. And that's
Nice
sort of
one.
it, Kurt.
Yeah. Sorry, I've just unmuted.
No, you're right. Having your lunch.
Yeah. Just relaxing. Thought you'd keep going there. But let's just check in. No, there's no questions. It looks like if you've dealt with it superbly well. But let's just talk. What are some of the most common challenges you see out there with guys? Like when they first come to you, what are some of the obvious like mistakes and challenges that guys face?
Not pricing off an accurate price book is probably the big one that I see, or them saying, oh yeah, we did a job and we charged a certain amount for a certain item a year ago, so they try and think that they can just charge the same again today, and it just doesn't work like that. There's a whole job for me keeping a price that's current. It literally takes 16 plus hours a week for us to keep our price that's current, and it's just one thing I see from guys, and you can't blame them either. I mean, it's just, pricing a job in the middle of the night when you can't get prices. It's often, oh yeah, it'll cost this much, or we think it's going to cost that much, and it's. Yeah. I can't blame guys for it, but that's one of the biggest ones I see. The other one is just not getting the numbers right. There's still very, very rarely, but occasionally, just a lot of rulers and scale rulers and pens, and estimating software is by far just it's a must. You've got to do it.
So in terms of estimating software, what are some of the most common? Alec, do you have a preference or?
I use Costex. Probably the most common one would be BuildSoft Qubit.
Yeah.
They're both good. They've both got their pluses and minuses. The BuildXact has got quite a good estimating tool attached to it. I haven't used it, but apparently Buildertrend has an estimating tool attached to it. I'm hearing mixed reviews on it. Some people say it's great, other guys say it's limited. But it's got to be better than using a paper and a pen, because you can see you've got a line on a digital line on a page. You can go back and see what you did. Whereas trying to do that sometimes between a scale rule and an Excel spreadsheet can get a bit can go run amiss.
Absolutely, yeah. You work with a lot of the guys that I speak to as well. Like, what percentage would you say of your clients charge for quotes?
90%. 90%. And of that 90%, I'd say probably about 89% of them don't charge enough.
Okay.
I think that there's, for the amount of work the guys put into it, like that 10 straight days, even when I do an estimate for them, you might knock off, 3, 4, 5 days off that for the builder, but they still got to run around and a lot of it's things like desktop publishing, trying to make a quote look good, be it through DocuSign or whatever it might be. They just spend so much time with it that, it's difficult to see how much time goes into those things until you actually sort of see it firsthand. And I think that they should be charging a lot more for it. I mean, what's the answer to that? I don't know. I mean, I speak to a lot of architects and suggest to them, and it's still a difficult one for a lot of the architects and professional project managers, sort of trying to get them into the mindset that this takes time and they should. Numbers of sort of $1,500 to $2,000 get thrown around to produce a tender for $1 million house. I mean, my fee for $1 million house is more than that. So the builder probably spends more time than I do on it. So, what's the figure? 6, 8 grand? I mean, it probably is. And then you throw, as I suggested before, the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes is helping with selections and helping with DA and CC approvals and things like that they often don't charge for. I just think that builders should be charging more. They should be.
I mean, that's it's an easy conversation, short conversation when it comes to, why builders should be charging and the amount of time and effort and everything that goes in. But that's not I always maintain that's not the focus the builder should have when it comes to them having the conversation with the client as to why they're charging. You've got to think about what's in it for the client, what's in it for them. And obviously, it's them not becoming a statistic and you as a builder having a duty of care to your client to make sure the numbers are accurate. And it's why there's no trust in the industry, because they're not accurate. And it's not because builders are bad people. It's just often burn they're tired, exhausted, pushing 80 to 100 hour week and trying to get numbers done, burning the midnight oil. So really the using someone like yourself and them having a process for accuracy is the huge benefit to the client, which is a value add, which is a foundation of wealth creation, is adding value. So there's that, but it's also important to remember, like with what you're saying there, with what goes into it, doesn't matter what you charge for a quote, it's going to be what's called a loss leader. You're not really going to cover the costs, right?
No.
In terms of time and effort and driving out and seeing people, if you added that all up,
heartache.
It's like Bunnings, where they do a promotion, they sell a product below cost, right? That's what a loss leader is, and then people rush in to get that product, and then when you're there, they're upselling, cross-sell. They got a checklist of 17 other things. While you're here, why don't you buy these things? And that's how they make money. So that's how you need to see charging for quotes, but it also aggressively qualifies the prospect, right? Because once
I was about to say, surely they've got skin in the game when they hand over, even if it's $2,000 or $2,500. At least it's sort of, okay, well, these people are serious. They're not just literally tire kicking.
Yeah.
So there's no
show of interest, right? Than someone handing over some money.
And also, I suppose at the end of it, most preliminary agreements will be handed over with an estimate in it, with a lot of quantities, the selection sheets, all the stuff that's been worked on. So the client even if the client doesn't choose to go with the builder, and remember, that goes both ways. Sometimes you can get to the end of a preliminary agreement with a client and go, you know what, there's no way I want to build a house to this person. It's just not a good fit. It can go both ways. So, but then they get something for it. They get they can take those quantities, they can take all their selection sheets, they can take whatever they want, move forward, and with or without you, I mean, it gives them something, leave on the coffee table, have a flick through, and it gives them, gives them some information, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, and it's also important to recognize all those people who say, no, hell no, I'm not paying you for a quote, or I'm not signing that prelim. You need to celebrate those, because those are, hours and hours and hours that you've avoided,
you've dodged a bullet.
Which has happened to everyone on this call. We've spent a lot of time, especially in the custom home space, with someone, and then at the end, it's nah, we changed our mind. See you later. Going with someone else.
Yeah, but you know, you've got something back for it, and they've got something to show for it, and
Mm.
you know, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's better than nothing. But the conversion rate, you're going to convert at least 50% of prelims or charge for quotes, closer to 70, sometimes 90%, right?
Wow, is it that much? I didn't realize that was sort of the conversion rate. That's awesome.
What are you seeing? Do you know? Like, do you track it at all?
To be honest with you, I've got a few clients that I deal with for, you know, post construction, but not too many. A lot of them I just say, how do we go? Yeah, probably 50% of our clients generally return work. I mean, to be honest with you, I'd probably ask more questions if every single job they're winning, because then it's obviously we're probably not charging enough, or they're not quoting enough.
No, but their conversion, once someone pays them for a quote, what percentage of those go to
about 50%? About 50%. I think about half the guys will turn a prelim or turn a quote into a job.
That should be a bare minimum. I'm seeing a bit higher than that. But what about?
Again, I don't see all of it. I don't see every one of them.
So probably don't see as much as me. I'm seeing the back end. What happens further down the track? But you mentioned before about what people charge. Anyone listening who doesn't charge for quotes, they're always asking, you know, what do you charge? How do you know what to charge? What's the rule of thumb for how much someone charges? Well, say $1 million project. What do you charge the client for that?
Well, sort of 0.25% on $1 million, that's less profit and overhead. So say just $1 million for round figures is $2.5 grand. A lot of the guys will be charging sort of 0.3, 0.35, so another sort of $1,000 on top of that. So $1 million job, I would like it to see it sort of close to 6 or 7 grand. They are probably charging 3 or 4 grand, but there seems to be a fair bit of success with that. The not too many prelims get rejected. I've seen that.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's always a good thing.
No, cool. Cost codes. Let's just talk about that for a sec. Aligning cost codes with purchase orders and then bookkeeping. How important is it, and what's the best practice from your perspective?
I mean, the same cost code should be used for when you quote, to when it goes into the PM software, to then when it gets reported back to your accounting software. Absolutely, but not ever. For us, we go into a lot more detail. There's no doubt. Like we can't just put everything under concrete and say go for it, hope for the best. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to break it down, and we wouldn't actually get any deeper. However, when it gets into the project management software, you might not need quite as much, but you need to know. You'd like to know where if you lost money or making money or whatever it might be, in the ground, out of the ground. So you would not want to know if it's footings, slabs, or suspended slabs, for example, if it's concrete. When it gets to the PM software, to the like Xero or the accounting software, it just needs to be the high level. That's all they're interested in. I've talked to Don at length about this. In fact, it was only a couple of days ago we were chatting about it, and he said, when I asked him sort of how important is it, how deep do you go on that, and he says he gets some clients who will, but he just doesn't see the point. They're just not like, there's just no need for to go that deep in your Xero. But at least having that same top level number all the way through, it's imperative. You can't not do it. It's as simple as that. Where it gets a bit tricky, I might add, just to sort of butt in, is often our cost codes won't align with what the principal is offering is how they want to report it. So then we will have to then map our cost codes to what they want for the tender submission, but then it needs to then stay in our cost codes to go right through. You can't change your cost codes for every single job you do. Otherwise, your Xero would have 500,000 cost codes that you just don't even use, and it's just not realistic. But that's when we see quite a bit. You get architects giving you weird and wonderful ways they want their quotes responded in. Sorry about that.
You want that consistency, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Makes it easier, yeah. No, I think that's it from my end in terms of questions, and I'm not seeing anything else in the chat. Here we go. There is one here. Craig saying, can you see that comment there?
Nope. Where am I looking?
It's in the questions. Craig has asked, how do you work out the prelim charge depending on if basic estimate, detailed quote, high level quote, and depending on how many consultants have to be brought in to provide the the additional detail. So yes, I suppose, how do you package it up and cost it?
Is it prelims in general, or just specifically to the consultants related to it?
So he's gone basic estimate, detailed quote, and high level quote, depending on. So
Okay,
obviously there's more. I'm assuming, Craig, that it's going to be, you know, if it's a QBE, a quick building estimate, or detailed quote, there's a different process and cost associated with that. And then if you're involved in engineering, surveying, an architect or design, and anything, there's 17 other things they need in the prelim. You just get quotes from those people. Ideally, you have a team of people that help with that preliminary stuff, and then you just package it up. And you can put something on there or not. He's just responding. Yep. Prelims, different types depending on the detail provided. Yeah, that's it. You just package it up as you would. Just think of the architect, designer, surveyor, engineer as subbies for your pre-construction, and
knowing who to charge what to. I mean, it's sort of, sometimes you'll pick up like the full detailed estimate. Chances are you're not going to need to engage any consultants because they've already been engaged for you. If you're sort of one step back from that and you're into sort of, you know, where are we? Okay, preliminary costing and high level budget. You might allow 3 to 5% of project cost to allow for any consultants, architects, consultants, etc. Depending on a lot of things, it's fairly open-ended. By the time you get to a detailed estimate, if there isn't a specific consultant involved, then you have to allow for it. It's pretty obvious. They've got the plans. If there's no structurals, you'll need a structural engineer. If you're engaged to do it as D&C, then yeah, go away and get a price. Full tender, chances are it's all going to be there. You won't even have to worry about it. One thing you probably will when you get into sort of detailed and full converting them over, you'll always generally identification surveys and markouts and pegouts and that sort of thing from surveyors are definitely something we always allow for. We'll always allow for it, because chances are it's a DA condition and everyone has forgotten about it. So if you go back to the client and say, I want some money for it, they'll probably say, why don't you allow for it? So we always allow a small sum for a surveyor to come out and do that. Other than that, I mean, unless you're employing the certifier directly, which you're paying the certifier directly, you could allow for a certifier, but most of that's always taken care of by others.
Nick's just saying, in response to what Craig was asking, on the prelim, I have provided it like stage claims for each service. So there's obviously a breakdown, and there's stage payments as they go through the prelim process. I've seen Gantt charts for preliminaries all the way through from, you know, standing start to right before they start turning soil.
Most accurate way to do it, because that way there's no ambiguity on your duration. You can accurately account for how much site staff, how much supervisory staff, project management fees, all the rest of it. You can see exactly how it is. It's by far the best way to do it.
Yeah, we had just a quick story. We had a builder down in Melbourne that was doing multi-unit developments, and they were doing prelim agreements for people, for their clients, and they had about 15 jobs in the prelim stage, and they were getting frustrated as hell because there were constant delays with, you know, the different stakeholders. Like, it could be the engineer going through council, an architect, a designer, and a lot of these people, surveyors, certifiers, were coming from the clients. And all it took was one guy who was incompetent, and we all know we live in a world of, you know, mediocrity, where there was a piece of paper, a certificate or something sitting on their desk, and it just caused major delay. So they actually made a decision to use what they called their own documentation. So when clients came to them, like, they had a highly competent engineer, designer, surveyor, certifier who they encouraged their clients to use, and it got to the point where their marketing was so strong that it was a way to disqualify clients. If clients weren't using their team and their documentation, then they wouldn't use them, because there would be unnecessary delays and mistakes as well.
Yeah,
it's so important, which is why a lot of inefficiencies that happen during the build can be traced back to sales pipeline or pre-construction phase, because you've got great, you know, design work. I hear it all the time, like there's mistakes, and just poor design work from an architect or designer, making sure that that's good, strong communication, everything in that prelim stage. Obviously the pricing as well.
And subcontractors, I might add. I mean, there's a lot of times that you'll get, Mrs. Smith will want to use her brother-in-law that's the plumber or something, and there's got to be a mechanism in place. And it's normally in the special conditions of your contract to basically say that any delays, especially if they've got you under a liquidated damages situation like LDs or some sort of delay costs, any delays that are experienced as a result of this subcontractor name here or this consultant or whatever it is, it's not only just, it doesn't count toward this, we will then charge you for those lost hours or those lost days, which I don't think is unreasonable.
I mean, it's worthwhile seeking out competent people and having,
Definitely.
like you've got a competent trade base and you spend time and effort to build that trade base, and that adds value to your business. You have the same thing at the front end because it heavily impacts workflow and cash flow if you have these delays. And I've seen people in tears. It is that frustrating. So worthwhile, getting a good team, and then that's the value add. If I'm a client of yours and you say to me, hey, I've got a great team of people that can help fast track all this whole pre-construction phase.
Yeah, we'll take care of it for you, and it's one less thing.
You don't want to do it. You don't want to manage it. Like I've had one guy who does passive house, great niche, and he's got someone in the office who manages, just phones people up and takes all the prelims forward through that Gantt chart. It's a full-time job, but it's worthwhile. But ideally outsource the management of clients through that. If that's done well, well, you're ticking these cash flow, profit, workflow. There's the workflow. Prelims help with the workflow, right?
Yeah, and then it comes in as well where we talk about this risk management side of it. The more you can get off your own books, the more you can take out off your plate and preferably pass them to someone else. It also reduces your risk. I'm a big believer of that.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm just checking. Yeah. Thanks for the interaction there, Nick and Craig. Really appreciate it.
I'm not seeing any of these comments, unfortunately.
You're not seeing them?
No, I'm not seeing the comments.
It's in, because it's in questions. Can you see the questions tab? You click on that. There's a little down side arrow. Click it, it goes down, and there's questions there.
No, mine's not working for me. Technology is not my friend today, Kurt. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Someone's just giving you a shout out, Craig Preston. Hey, Craig. He's going, hey, Jim.
Hi, Craig. How you going?
Fine.
I just got an email actually from Michael Baker. I appreciate that. I will get back to you shortly.
Cool. Okay, Craig's asking, what estimating software do you use? I think you mentioned it before.
Costex. Yeah, we use Costex.
Costex. Yeah.
They've all got their pluses and minuses. You're better off using a software suite rather than trying to do it by hand. I'm not here to advocate or criticize any of them. It's they all have their pluses and minuses. We had to make a decision 9 years ago, and that's who we went with.
Hey, with like when someone starts working with you, right? Like I obviously send a lot of my guys over to you. So they're used to doing the quotes themselves. I haven't met anyone who enjoys it except you.
Sorry.
It's charging, so charging for quotes and then outsourcing it, game changer, right? I always talk about it day one with my guys. But I mean, it's not just a case of them going, hey, Jim, we've got this quote, and then you do it and that's it. Like there is like an onboarding process. A big part of it is them trusting you, like getting to know you. There's a relationship component. And then at some point, like once you've taught them stuff, I always say, hey, Jim's going to add value. He's going to teach you things. He's going to look at your quotes and show you where maybe you're undercharging on certain things, or there's things you don't know. And this is all Jim does. So of course he's going to be better at pricing than you. And that's a bit of an awareness thing, because they don't realize, oh shit, yeah, he probably is better than me because he's quoting for all my competitors. But how long does it what's that onboarding process like? One. And then how long does it generally take for someone to get to a point where they go, hey, Jim, take care of this for me? And then they have minimal, because it's all about freeing up time, and then a small amount of their time involved.
The first job I do for any client, generally, I make no money on. I'll just be completely abundantly open about it. By the time I do the job, normally it's a bit of backwards and forwards with I'm getting to know them. I ask a lot of questions up front about sort of hourly rates and, you know, just general things like that, how they structure their business. Do they mainly subcontract work? Do they have internal staff? All those sort of questions. We do the job. We have an extensive Zoom meeting after it, go through it line by line. And generally after that job, we're right. I'll keep notes aside. I know the way that they run the business. I know what their overheads are and what their, you know, internal structures are. And then from then on, we're right. So one job normally. And even then it's not an abrasive experience. It's still pretty smooth.
Okay. Craig's got a couple other comments here. So Costex, how can we review your data if we don't have the software? Is there a way for them to do that?
Yes, there is, because with my clients, I send them a copy of the job and they can download a free Costex viewer, so they can see effectively what looks like a spreadsheet, and then they can right click on the price and it will take them straight back to the sheet and tell them and show them where the dimension's been taken off.
Okay, cool.
It's about the most honest way I can do it. At first I was sort of in two minds whether I would do it. Then I started doing it about 5-6 years ago, and it's been one of the best things I've done. And to be honest with you, that's what's kept me using Costex, is the ability to do that. I've got nothing to hide. I've got absolutely nothing to hide, and it shows the builder exactly where everything's going from. It's a good communication tool.
Yeah.
Anyone on this call, send me an email. I'm happy to have a 15-minute discovery call with them. We'll do a quick Zoom meeting and I'll run through all this with them. There's no problem at all.
So Craig's asking, so once your price is complete, this is a good question. Like, how much review and input, you know, to tweak things do they have, so how much do they have to do it? I suppose normally, yeah.
We'll always do that Zoom call after every job I do. Some jobs are 5 minutes, just quickly run through it. If it's a $200-300 grand job, if it's $1 million, you know, worth a few million, it takes a bit longer. But we just go through it. I see that as a good opportunity to show what I might. I mean, plan interpretation is exactly that. I am seeing a set of plans in a certain way. The builder or the end user might be seeing it in a different way, and sometimes it's that interaction that we can, you know, nut things out. And, you know, it's often you pick up a set of drawings, I don't even know what's going on in a certain section. The builder might have been out there. It's a reno. They know what the job looks like. I don't personally know. That input is gold. We need it. Other times we just go through prices, and, you know, the builder might say, "Oh, how did you come up with that price?" I'll go in. I'll actually show them the labour, plant, material that make up that specific price. Show them where the dimensions come from. You know, my jobs have comments all the way through them, so they get to see like my train of thought and my logic for why I was going with it. It's yeah. So no, I don't just hand a job over and don't answer the phone again. We definitely go through it. And since I'm the one that actually does all the estimating, you know, it's not like I haven't. I mean, I'm at the cusp of maybe employing someone shortly because we're getting busy, but even then, everything still goes through me. So, you know, I'll often get phone calls and guys will say, "Oh, on that job that you did for me last week, on level 1, there was a such and such." Because I've done the job, I can actually sort of think to myself, yeah, okay, I know what they're talking about. It's not like I've got to go through, you know, 10 employees to get to that answer. So, you know, I like to sort of think that I still keep a finger on the pulse, and there's no way I'd change that. No way at all. So directly answer the question, yeah, as much as we need. Yeah. My mantra I say to all my clients, and every one of my current clients will agree with this, is I'm here to make you money. It's number one. Sometimes that is me being as blunt, saying I wouldn't take this job on, it's too risky. You know, it's literally as much as that. Other times it's, you know, this is, you know, might be 3-4 follow-up meetings to make sure it's right. I go to the odd tender meeting if you're in Sydney. I mean, I go to tender meetings occasionally and justify my costs to architects and project managers and stuff. It all happens. My job is to make sure you guys are making money. It's as simple as that.
Oh, cool. And then Craig's just saying he's found working with other estimators, he gets panicked that he can't keep discussing the quote, and then things evolve. So I'm assuming that's when clients come back with changes, lots of changes. Look,
yep.
What's your experience with that, and how do you deal with it?
My general thing is, if there's a couple of changes here and there, it's part and parcel of the job. As soon as I've got to import a new set of drawings, then that's unfortunately where I've got to charge more money, because it's, you know, there's a whole revision of drawings and I've got to upload it all again with a whole new set of dimensions and all the rest of it. It takes my time. But if it's just changing a tile type or chasing a color or even, stretching a room out or deleting a deck or something like that. No, I never charge for it. It happens every other week, and I never charge for it. Like I said, it's all about making sure the boys are making money. That's all, and the girls for that matter. I do have a few ladies that are clients. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. It's all about my clients making money, and whatever we've got to do to get over the line. It's that builder mentality I've always had. If you've got to work till midnight, you've got to work till midnight. It's just one of those things.
My experience with that, the way around it is like with everything, full disclosure before the fact. So when you packaging up a cost analysis, whether it's a prelim that includes a quote or just doing the quote itself, the cost analysis, whatever you want to call it, you let people know there's 2 or 3 changes, and then that's it. And then it's capped. And then if they want to make more changes, a bit like on a job, you make your selections, and then once they're done, look, you can make changes, but there's variation process and the fee associated with that. So if you explain that up front, then then they know the rules of engagement, and then they'll stop at that second or third one, and then leave it at that, or they'll keep going knowing that you're going to charge them 180 bucks an hour. So it's simple. Are you seeing guys do that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for other estimators, but I don't unless there's a big change, unless it's a really big change. I mean, I've got a very low churn rate. I mean, once I get a client, I normally don't lose them, and as a result, I do sort of develop a good working relationship with the guys, and my phone's always on. Guys always ring me. We always talk about stuff. It's again, it just comes back to getting the job over the line. If I do have to charge more for it, it's generally because a whole new set of drawings has to go in. Some guys have asked for that detailed advanced degree more often than not. If we, most of it's on a handshake agreement, so to speak, and I like to think that I haven't pissed off anyone that badly because they keep coming back. So
yeah, I think it's important.
In fact, I haven't. So I haven't.
It's important for builders to recognize that when they're taking clients through the sales process, and you've done this yourself, Jim, it's about leadership, right? You've got to lead them through your process with lots of love and kindness, right? You're not being, dickhead about it. You're taking them through a process that's engineered to give them the best possible result. So you've got to, be upfront about, what that process looks like and what you're going to do to best help them. But I know a lot of guys do want to just please the client, and that's their sales process. I just want to give them as much as I can. You do want to over deliver. I'm a big believer in being client centric, 1 and 2, under promise, over deliver. But you've got to do it in a way that's
there's limits. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, not just being a people pleaser. And I'm not saying everyone is, but I do see a lot of it. So it's important to be mindful.
Yeah, and it goes the other way too. I mean, you do get a lot of guys who dig their heels in on something, and I've seen it. They dig their heels in. I say, oh, gee, maybe you should have yielded on that. And they're like, no, bugger them. I don't want to do that. And I'm like, okay, it's your business. But I think there's a happy medium. I definitely do. That everyone likes free stuff, so you want to let a client think, be it my client, their client, you as a business owner, you want to let people think they're getting good value, but still at the same time not be taken for a ride. And I think there is definitely a tight but happy medium to work on that.
Yeah, it's like being a firm but loving parent. There's a fence, there's a line you won't cross. But again, you've got to help them understand that. It's a bit like pre-construction, explaining how you're going to communicate with them. The fact they can't just turn up to site whenever they want, and they can't phone you at 7 o'clock on a Sunday night because you and your team need to rest so that you can be, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed on site on Monday morning. And but you've got a process for how you will communicate with them proactively through your job scheduling tool or whatever process, so that they understand that. And that's not being, be nasty about it. You can be very kind and even like a people pleaser within that structure, where you're just giving them lots of things, but people respect and appreciate that.
I think also as well with the don't rock up on site unannounced, it's a safety thing as well. I mean, you don't want people walking around on a site if it's dangerous. And
the thing is, like, if someone's never built before, they may be, it sounds absurd, but they might not be
understand. Yeah,
everyone's
totally.
so busy, and we're all these days, like, we all live in our bubbles, right? We live in a bubble, and we just don't, if you don't hear about it, you don't realize how intense that OH&S is, the work health and safety stuff, right?
and everyone's out to sue everyone at the moment these days. So, you know, it's yeah, I mean, it's an insurance thing as well. If you let a client on side and they haven't got a hard hat on, they haven't got boots on, they do trip over and fall on something and get impaled by a bit of Rio or something, insurance company's going to maybe pay them out, but they're going to take you for a ride as well. So, you know, there is a lot that goes on these days that needs to be sort of thought about for sure.
Yeah, you can come across like you care about them, but it's the same with the margins, the same with getting the numbers right. You're coming from a place of caring for the client, making sure they don't become a statistic, because that's, again, the reason I fully believe why there's a lack of trust in the industry. People get told one thing and then completely different outcome.
Is it just, yeah, I mean, people talk people down on price. And I hear you guys say, oh, I've reduced my rate from 20 to 15 or from 25 to whatever it might be. And I go, oh, should you do that? Because as soon as you start a job knowing that you're not going to make too much money, yes, you can be frugal, but you can also start looking for reasons to try and gain your money back. I'm never been a believer of that. It's an education thing, and you and I have talked about this at length. But I personally like comparing houses to cars. You know, if you do have the Porsche, but you do have the Toyota Camry. Or, you know, there is, and what people seem to forget is they can pay for the Toyota Camry but get the Rolls Royce, and there's that sort of expectation of cost and what you get for your costs and everything. And I've spoken to a lot of our clients, a lot of the builders clients of ours, and you know, putting together some sort of manual that they can actually see high, medium, and low quality, and have examples of things, and not even call it high, medium, low quality, but you know, prestige, standard, prestige, and premium or something, and you know, see the differences in things. So you know, if you put on a selection sheet, can you tell me if this is, you know, what quality is? Everyone's going to say high quality. It can be anywhere. House for anything can be whatever. I see quality as, you know, 10 plus thousand, no, not quality, not the right term. High premium level construction as 10,000 plus a square meter. Whereas, you know, people sort of go, yeah, I want what I see in Point Piper, or if you're a Melbourne Q, or, you know, wherever it might be. But they sort of think, oh, but you know, my house is only small, so it's only going to cost me less. And there's just that disconnect of education. I think a lot of it they just don't fully understand.
Yeah, you spot on. Client education, crucial. Managing expectations.
Managing expectations is a big one. Yeah, totally.
Kind and loving way. But yeah, that the margin thing, I mean, that's so easy to come unstuck there, because 20% is the most common thing, and it's 20% markup, not margin. So there's a 16% margin. That 20 markups a 16 margin. Then someone goes, hey, let's go down to 15. So if they go down to 15 markup, that's, you know, 12 or 13% margin, and then they're in a high risk zone. One mistake and then bang, that's it. And then who's the victim? The client, not them.
The client, yeah. And I mean, home, and that's like, you know, home warranty providers will do their audits of companies, and if they're not doing 20% margins, they're less likely to get, you know, 20% or greater margins and markups, etc. Like making decent money, they're less likely to get their insurance, you know. I mean, that's the thing. Like, people's like, oh yeah, but I want a discount. It's like, yeah, but I'm a stable company. Yes, I charge this much, but there's a reason I charge this much. It's because we're doing the right thing, you know.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable, because the client's squeezing the builder to get his price down, but then the lower the price goes, you can't get insurance to do the build for the client. So it's like a, you know, contradiction. Yeah. But they don't, again, client education, they're not aware. They don't,
totally.
The way they perception's reality, and they perceive builders to be ripping them off for making money, but they're not, you know, and they just need to look at the reality, right? The truth will set you free. Like, there's more insolvencies in this industry than any other.
Especially recently, especially over the past 3 or 4 years, has been way too many, way too many. And so it's not nice either. I've seen it firsthand with a few of the guys, a few of the clients. It's not nice to see it.
But it's credible third-party evidence. Like, if you're a builder, you can say, hey, you know, it's uncomfortable and it's not pleasant, but there, look at that. That's what's happening. And we have a duty of care to make to you, our client, to make sure we're financially sound. So we're using this margin, and you don't want to disclose those margins in the home building compensation guidelines, but if you have to, you can show them. A minimum 20% margin is where I need to be to offset the risk to you, and that's a 25 markup, right?
Yeah.
Ideally, you know, if you're working with me, 25 margin, 33 markup. If you're working with Michael Stone in the US, 50 markup, 33
you can
markup.
do it.
And
Happy days.
In the trenches.
That's what make money.
It's stack the value, make it happen. You know, like, if someone said to you, you know, you can pay $1 million for a car, you know, if you can do it. Well, yeah, you've got a, you know, Rolls Royce, or, you know, there's vehicles out there, Bugatti, you know, 3 mil.
Yeah, Veyron or Chiron or
That
something.
enables the clients to come to them. They've had to stack the value in that particular niche, which, by the way, the luxury market, not just cars, is the biggest per cap in the world, right?
Yeah, right.
Like the Louis Vuitton and the Hermes, and massive. I think Hermes it's bigger than Nike, and it's all
So do you have a Louis Vuitton handbag, Kurt, or?
I don't know.
No? Okay, just thought I'd ask. To what? My wife does.
I don't have anything. I don't have anything that to my liking. But yeah, there's but yeah, and that's, I mean, we're going off topic here, but that's artificial scarcity that they create. But I'm just, yeah, the point is, the feedback I get from a lot of builders, I can't put my margin up. You know, no one's going to pay that. Don't compete on price, right? You need to stack value in other ways, and it's not that difficult. You know, communication for one, just communicate well. And that's where you see the guys that do communicate exceptionally well. You know, they tend to do it on video. They have, quality, consistent pulse of quality video content going out there, if not their own media company. And those guys, that puts them in a position where they can pick and choose.
I see it actually firsthand. A lot of the guys who I see who are consistently just turning every job from a quote into a start. They are very polished, and as much as I say the quoting is the most important part, the reason they're getting so many jobs to quote is because their marketing is obviously up to scratch, but then likewise they're actually educating, doing the job right, so the clients get confidence within them, etc., and it all just obviously snowballs in the right direction. But some of what those guys are doing, it's the price is secondary. The people have come to them, they want to build with them. It's as simple as that. And they're the sort of clients who, they've got a BMW in the driveway and they know the difference between a BMW and the Toyota Camry. And they want the same with their house. And I just think that there's absolutely no reason in the world that can't be communicated towards a client and be part of the overall, Yeah,
if you're competing on price, you're just being lazy. You're just being lazy. And marketing is the holy grail, because if you've got more inquiry coming in than you can handle, then you can pick and choose those clients who are better behaved, they're in a better location, they're all cash.
Better fit, yeah. It's sometimes a better client and a smaller job is better than a big job with a terrible client. It's just, I'm a strong believer of that. It's it's got to be a good fit. You don't want to go to work. Yeah, okay, we're all in this for a 7-figure profit, but at the same time, if the 7-figure profit is going to send you to an early grave, there's also got to be a bit of up and down on that.
Yeah, and spend the time getting to know your client. Like one word with marketing, relevance. So if you've got highly relevant message that you send into your AAA grade blue chip clients, and you've got more of them at the front door than you can handle, then your sales process becomes a deselection process or an application-based sales process. You're not trying to sell yourself to your clients. They need to sell themselves to you. And it's basic economics of supply and demand. You just create more demand for you than you can supply through your marketing systems. And then your sales process, again, is application based, them applying for you to build for them. And your first question is, why us, why now? And if they say, because we're speaking to 5 other builders and you one of them, you say, thank you very much. I know someone who's perfect, and refer them on. Otherwise, if they say, because we absolutely love you and we've been following you and we're only speaking to you and negotiate a tender, great. Okay. And then you educate them from that point on how you are going to deliver the best possible outcome for them, which includes getting all selections done before the job starts, which you outsource, by the way, to an interior designer. You got your selections process, and once that's done, if you want to change something, variation process, this is how much it's going to cost. You pay up front so that when it happens, it goes smooth. But and then you program the job. You've got the communication process in place, like we spoke about, and then the job's going to run smoothly, right? And then
with no surprises. Surprises. That's the big one with the client.
But a happy client then tells all their friends and family, and their Rolodex, people they work with, and then that is marketing. So you close the loop. You're getting referrals from people who are qualified and they want to work with you. And next thing you know, you got people aggressively pursuing you. And if you want to
So
take
tell me,
yeah,
just question on that. Just how much do you see? Because this is more your domain than mine, but I think it's relevant right now. How much more likely is someone to choose you because they've been told by a friend versus having a polished marketing, online presence, etc.? I know the online presence is important, but how much, like, if someone is recommended to you, I mean, what is, like, how much more likely are you going to get the job, do you think?
significantly more, because
Yeah, I would have thought so.
you're getting a transfer of trust. So think of your best friend or a brother, a sister, a parent who you trust, and they are saying to you, hey, this guy's amazing. So it's a person close to you whose judgment you trust and who you have values alignment with. If they've had a good experience, even if it's one person removed, they go, well, the person that they are close to that you may not know so well had a really good experience, then you just automatically trust. Think about the last time you got a referral from someone like that who you trust. You don't question it, right?
There's almost no questions asked. I was about to say that. Yeah, you're right. 100%
You've got recourse as well. Like you feel like you can go back to your friend or family member and go, hey, you referred me to these people. Yeah, so you've got that recourse, it feels that way. But yeah, so because of that, it's more powerful. But don't discount the power of client banking. So you having, consistent pulse of, again, quality video content, photos on Instagram, your website, maybe a newsletter, even once a quarter, where people fall in love with what you're doing. Because that's another thing. If you can hit the emotional hot buttons, if you do a particular type of build and someone falls in love with it, usually, with resi and houses, it's a woman. The wife falls in love with something, and then once that happens, they want it and they obsess. And then if there's not many, again, if this is why specializing is so important. If there's not many builders that specialize in that type of work and are award-winning, say, then they'll again come after you. So it's put you in a good position.
So niching as well is obviously a really important part of it as well. Stick to what you know. Don't reinvent the wheel.
But you don't want to only rely on referrals. I mean, that's the most common. Everyone listening now, or their most common lead or inquiry will be referrals. But you don't want to rely on that. It's dangerous because, well, you're not going to have that many referrals that you overbook the flight, and then you have to use that deselection process and use the application-based process. So you want more. You want to create, and that you want to create that oversupply. And then some people may be going, well, that's crazy. How am I going to deal with it? Well, you just refer on, right? You have a referral process. You refer on to other builders, any other jobs you don't want. But it puts you in the box seat. Yeah. So you want to have minimum of 10 different ways to generate one inquiry, but also pursue those referrals, especially from the people that you like.
Yeah. No, totally.
Yeah, so that the front end sales process is so important. So we've been talking away. There's a couple of comments here. Craig said, especially if you do have an online presence. Yeah, online presence, really important. The leverage there, you're just going to reach so many people. Okay, so Hugh saying, I've been told recently that fees for variations up front are classified as a cost escalation under a contract. Fees for variations up front under a contract. How are you finding the what is that?
I'll get where he's going with that. What states are you in?
So sorry, just before you go, just so that sounds like a contractual issue outside of my sphere of expertise, because there are different contracts. But Jim, go for it.
What state's that in? Is it Hugh, is it?
Yeah, Hugh.
What state's Hugh in?
Yeah, it'll be state specific, Hugh. What state are you in? And so you obviously got to comply. Is in Victoria.
Okay, I can't speak sort of with a great deal of sort of authority for Victoria. And in New South Wales, if it's a special condition, you can do it. But it's counted basically as a variation. So you're charging a variation for the potential to do a variation.
Yeah, you've got to comply with state law. Yeah.
Yeah. But I couldn't tell you categorically for Victoria, only that I know a couple of the guys down there are doing it. So there must be a way. But good question. Good question.
Yeah, good. If I was working with you, Hugh, I'd say, like, obviously find out what you can do with variations, what the process is. Association lawyer is the best. That's where you get the most value from your association membership. Speak to the lawyer there. And then the key thing here is not so much you getting them to pay up front or whatever it is. It's more you communicating that process to them, making sure they get their selections in before you start the job, right? Before you turn soil, and then explain the variation process before you turn soil as well, so they know exactly what that is. If it's, so most guys wait till the end of a job and then they hit them with all the variations, and then there's emotional backlash like you've never seen before. So
that's the wrong way to
it's
do it.
more about full disclosure than a contractual issue, but obviously optimize, do the absolute best you can. Like when it comes to taking a deposit, take the maximum deposit you can. Like in New South Wales, 10%, Victoria, it's 5%, right? Queensland, 5%. Take the 10% if you can here in.
Money's on the table, take it. Yeah, for sure.
Take it, yeah, take as much as you possibly can. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if there's any other Victorians on the call and you know the answer, just type it in.
Yeah, I'd be keen to hear as well. In fact, I've taken a little note down for myself as well as jotting something down a second ago. I'm interested to know that once I was going to do a bit of research on it.
And then just on that, you work with guys across the Eastern Seaboard, right?
Mainly Eastern Seaboard, yeah. I do, Tasmania up to Townsville, I think, is the most furthest north. Few here and there in South Australia, and I've had a couple over in Western Australia over the years. But then, I mean, non-consistent clients, I'd say they just don't get to go to the estimating done. I'll do a job for them, then I won't hear from them again for a while. But yeah, East Coast, which makes sense. I mean, there's a lot more people on the East Coast of Australia. There's a lot more population, so I'd say there's a lot more work, and there's just a lot more work out there for us.
Stop talking. You're pissing Western Australians off.
I'm not pissing them off. I love Western Australia. I thought Perth's a beautiful place.
Making it sound like there's more going on here, as in there's nothing happening there. And there's just
you throw them under the bus, Kurt. I don't like
it. I love my Western Australian clients and friends. Having dinner with one of them tonight, actually. But
very good.
I think, man, we've been talking for like a good 45 minutes or so since you finished your presentation. If there's no other question, guys, we'll leave it there. Any closing comments from you, Jim?
If I can go back to my second last slide, they're my key takeaways. Take your time and get the numbers right. Estimate with the intention to be scrutinised, and you're not just charged for handling fee. Just make sure that anything that you do, you should be compensated for, either now or through goodwill for future. And then just on top of that, any questions? Send me an email. I've already noticed a couple come through. I'll get in contact with the boys this afternoon, and yep, they're all boys. I shouldn't be like that. Yep, but yeah, I mean, give me a call.
Love it, man. My closing comments was number one rule for sales: qualify. Charging for quotes using Jim, game changer. Have a fantastic rest of the week, guys. We'll chat soon, Jim.
Thanks. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.